And one thing that I urge young people and not so young people, run, go for it, run for city council.
At this stage, the kind of violence that's been leveled at Palestinians living in Gaza is so significant and so severe.
But people are divided. People are divided of opinion. And I've always believed that that's fine. You go your way, I'll go my way. Assalamu alaikum. That means peace be unto you. Welcome to Citizen Live. My name is Haroon Khan. You know, we've been working on getting this podcast off the ground for months. And it's been, we've shot pieces in living rooms, we've shot pieces in basements, we've shot them in public places, we've shot them at city halls. And here we are in a studio, so it's a step up. And I'd like to acknowledge our good friend Johal, who I serve with on a museum advisory board, there'll be more about that later in another broadcast. But right now we're going to talk to guests. And the first guest that I have is a very thorough gentleman. I've met him here in our community, and he served with distinction for a number of years. He served as a professor of comparative studies at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and currently serves as a director of the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies. He's an author of several books, which I'll have him describe, but I'll give you a few. Egypt in Flux, Al Jazeera, the story of the network that is rattling governments and redefining modern journalism, and a lot going on with Al Jazeera, so we'll definitely dig into that topic. Edward Said, one of the great thinkers out of Palestine and sorely missed in this day and age. So a legacy of emancipation and representation, mediating the Arab uprisings, media evolution on the eve of the Arab Spring. His work deals with media, identity, and politics, and he's lectured extensively on these topics in universities worldwide, and he brings his words of wisdom to here. So welcome to Citizen Live.
Thank you so much,
Adel,
Haroon. Appreciate it. Very kind of you. Overly generous introduction, but it's a real delight to be here and to talk to you and to explore some of these really important and very urgent themes in the state. Yeah.
So Adel, let's dive right into it. You know, there have been calls for ceasefire. Biden has finally gotten off the pot and in his own way had his come to Jesus moment, as it was referred to on the hot mic moment with Netanyahu. But do you think it will happen? Will there be a ceasefire?
Quite frankly, Haroon, I don't know what a ceasefire means anymore. Even if we were to expect a ceasefire, whether it's temporary or permanent, at this stage, the kind of violence that's been leveled at Palestinians living in Gaza is so significant and so severe. The only way to turn back what has unfolded in the last 6 months is to change the circumstances of their livelihood completely. They cannot go back to a crippling siege, which is what they've been living under for 17 years, long before October 7th and Hamas's attacks. They cannot go back to the complete strangling of life. They cannot continue to go back to the inability to move. I mean, most of us are living under conditions out here. We have the luxury of living under conditions that allow us to access, you know, all the public and civic rights, right, afforded to us by this country, but also under the United Nations Charter for Human Rights. And this charter, which was enshrined shortly after the Second World War, has been violated by Israel since 1948, since the establishment of the state, whether it's in the West Bank or in Israel proper for 20% of the population, of whom are Palestinian, but more severely by the population in Gaza. More than 1.9 million individuals have been displaced. Now that there is a retraction of or the withdrawal of some Israeli forces from South Gaza, people are starting to go back to revisit the homes that they've left. And really what they're discovering is that there's nothing left. So what is this life that they're going to go back to? Ceasefire simply means the discontinuation of active warfare that has destroyed people's lives. Will that reinstate the status quo prior to October 7th? If that's the case, then this is not a ceasefire. People in Gaza have been living under warlike conditions for 17 years, and that is not sustainable. So whatever Biden is speaking into Netanyahu's ear, thus far, I feel like this is, utterly insignificant, and it's largely because, on one level, there's a discussion of ceasefire, and then with the other hand, one hand is saying, that's it, discontinue, but we've got an $18 billion arms transfer.
The olive branch and the arrow. Yeah,
absolutely. And the olive branch is so small, almost, the risk of being invisible.
Yes.
Right? And then the arms shipments are so substantial and so significant.
Well,
so
that's what you see is the rocket's red glare.
Absolutely.
And, that's the reality.
And then, of course, you can posit that against the amount of aid that's being sent into Gaza or being airdropped. All of this is just, it is almost, if it wasn't so tragic and so heartbreaking, it would be laughable.
It's they call absurdity, and when absurdity becomes normality, you have chaos, and the world is in chaos right now. The absurdity of the situation, we've all seen it, and so it's been 6 months, and again, 16 years since the siege has been going on. Nothing from land, sea, or air. No movement without permission. No goods coming in. You look at the propaganda coming, they could have built this, they could have done that. Not one stick of material can come into it without authorization. And I think one of the purposes of coming out like this as an independent broadcast is to put a light on things that you normally wouldn't see. If you do watch the news, there's some great programming, 100% on all of the networks. But they fail to really delve into the context of it, the reality of it. And, since the election of Hamas, that's one thing. But well before Hamas was formed, well before any of us were born, like 75 years ago, back in 1948, this conflation happened. Now, I identify myself, I'm born in a small town in British Columbia. But I have an affinity and an identity with the country of Pakistan. So Pakistan was formed in 1947 out of the partition of India. Now, and of course, I'm originally from India. We were originally from Ludhiana, Halwara, which was near Delhi. And then that fractured, and we moved to the other side of Punjab in Pakistan, and that's a place called Haroon, which is where I get my name.
Yes.
But I look at it as the class of 47 and 48.
Yes.
So out of this dissolution of the British Empire, you have still a very dysfunctional set of countries. India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and the surrounding areas should really be at peace. It's one big continent. Yet they're at loggerheads, and democracy is not really in the best of shape. They're at the best of times, but it's not been the best of times there. But what's happened in Israel and Palestine is it's put the world into tatters, and it's been very difficult. So we know this, and I think as we delve into more context and gain a greater understanding of it, we can give viewers and researchers and students of this, because you really should be a student of this to really understand all the various subtleties of it, because there are some things you just don't know. The casual way that genocide is just being taken, that, it just happens here, just how it is. It's not. And the fact of the matter is there's nothing normal about what's happening right now. Nothing at all. And because of 6 months have dragged on, and we'll talk about those 6 months from day one, is the fact that that people are dealing with cognitive dissonance. It's overwhelming. And what can you do? You turn it on to volume. You change the channel, but it's still going on. And this is where complicit comes to fore, because just the fact that you can ignore it willfully It's still going on,
Yes.
and people will be brought to account, and that may be you and I, because we've got a young child outside the studio. That's your future, and we've got so many bright futures that are looking to live their lives. But to see the lives being cut short over there, it's nothing short of heartbreaking, and it's not normal. So we have to stop it.
You're absolutely right, and I'm really glad, Haroon, that you've brought your sort of story and family history and your connection both to Canada and to India, Pakistan after the partition, because the assumption is that the collapse of imperial projects was supposed to deliver self-determination, freedom, and justice for all. But as we've seen, identity politics played a huge part in creating competing narratives of self-interest, and unfortunately, that's not even where the lines were drawn. The lines continue to be drawn in those countries where identity politics plays a role in rendering certain communities disadvantaged or precarious or vulnerable. The rise of right-wing nationalism is problematic there as it is in other places. Yeah. And because it precipitates conditions that are very divisive and makes life difficult across those sort of identity lines, it becomes a very serious matter that needs immediate address. In the case of Palestine, Israel, the collapse of, or the departure of the British Empire from that region didn't precipitate a nationalist collective project of self-determination for the Palestinians. No. It did so exclusively for the Israelis, who created on the rubble of a Palestinian nation state, if you will, a Zionist dream that is designed exclusively for Jews. And with that comes another settler colonial project to replace a settler colonial project.
Yes, well, that goes back to the crappy piece of land
analogy
of
our former BC Minister of Higher
Education Minister, Selena, who I've reached out to, and we've gone back and forth. Yeah. We have yet to meet in person, but there's homework to do, Selena. So
and I'll tell you, and obviously I'm not gonna say anything in defense of either Selena or her comments, but I will say that it's important to note that this particular worldview is specifically a function of ignorance of the realities on the ground. I don't think sometimes it appears to be malicious or has political intent to undermine, but I think in a very fundamental way there's been an active erasure of the history of Palestine pre-1948.
It's a trivialization of the people of Palestine, and that's a fact. Like, when I heard the word kibbutz, I heard the word kibbutz all my life growing up. Oh, kibbutz, they're doing it, this is really jolly thing of strolling around the kibbutz, but you didn't realize the fact of the matter is the kibbutzim, they're there by actively creating the erasure of these people, throwing them off their land, killing them, uprooting their livelihood, uprooting olive trees, uprooting their culture and their history, and then essentially saying, well, we're here, so the whole settler issue is also going on in a very severe way in the West Bank and the other occupied territories, and so people are being forcefully evicted in their homes. This war, quote-unquote war or genocide, is being used as a smokescreen to go and basically allow more forced expulsions of people. And this is something that we can see plain as day. Yet, again, the eyes are on Gaza or the Rafah border. But the reality is it's much more sinister. And it's a very, almost a total type of annihilation that they're going after. But it's drip, drip, drip in those other areas, whereas it's very fast in Gaza.
Yes.
And so what do you see right now as the most urgent case for the world to tackle?
In terms of Gaza and Palestine specifically, I think the most, as the conversation started, we absolutely need a cessation of the genocide campaign, which is not the same as saying that we need a ceasefire, right? We need this entire structural operation to come to a standstill.
So do we need an intervention?
Obviously, no one can intervene against Israel. This is what makes things kind of laughable. The United Nations
yes.
literally, the United Nations has on record at least 5 Security Council resolutions that are legally binding
Yes.
for Israel to observe, to no longer occupy areas in the West Bank. And these
they're not
things
enforced.
continue. Absolutely,
They're
they're not enforced,
Yeah.
and there isn't the will to enforce, and there may not even be the capacity to enforce against Israel.
So
And
what
so-
happened to peacekeeping?
Yeah.
What happened to all of these great things?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, think of it this way:
Yeah.
the amount of funds invested into the UN system is already becoming quite scarce.
Yes.
So member states, I mean, usually member states with the capacity to support are the ones who are provide the lion's share, and those tend to be powerful northern hemispheric countries, Western Europe, North America, the United States being one of the largest contributors to UN shares. But with the with the United States, over the last 20 some years, becoming increasingly "quote unquote" suspicious or disinterested or outright admonishing of the international order to begin with. I don't know if you and I will remember this, but former UN Ambassador John Bolton,
Yes.
and someone who served in so many different capacities, he said
the
things.
butcher Bolton.
So I mean, one of the things that he said was like the United Nations Secretariat could lose like 10 floors or something along those lines.
Right.
So this complete disdain for the UN has become almost like cultural within the United States sort of system of governance. From at the congressional level, you listen to congressional hearings. So if governments around the world are no longer contributing to the United Nations, then how is it that it can have the capacity to do peacekeeping, to do like rebuilding? It's extremely difficult. So the UN system is in and of itself becoming increasingly frail. And so where is this capacity? And then at the same time, Israel is also behaving and operating like a rogue pariah state. Who's in a position to tell Israel what to do? It doesn't listen to anyone. In fact, the latest news today, I know this podcast will come out, and a lot of this stuff may be already resolved or may transpire differently. But at least today's news is that, Biden, communicates to Netanyahu that a Rafah invasion cannot happen.
Yes.
But simultaneously, Netanyahu issues a statement saying
gonna happen.
it's going to happen.
Yes.
And then the State Department's spokesperson comes out and says the details of the operations, the Israeli operation in Rafah, has not been shared with us. So literally, the one country that bankrolls, arms, supports, and does all of this.
Now they can plead ignorance.
Has no
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. So who knows and who decides?
Yeah.
At this point, like we don't know who's at the wheel.
Yeah.
In fact, there are protests inside Israel in the tens of thousands calling for the resignation of Netanyahu. So whoever's steering this,
Who's wagging the
genocidal
dog?
mission- yeah,
Who's wagging the dog? Yeah.
So I don't know where the solutions lie, but I will tell you this, Haroon, and I think this is, a glimmer of hope in the midst of what feels like a really catastrophic and endless abyss that we're in. But there is a substantial awakening on a public level.
No question.
Every elected official, whether they're here or in Europe or elsewhere, has to reckon with the reality that the average person now sees the confounding reality that Palestinians are a disempowered and genocided people. And that's something very difficult to push against.
Yes.
Yesterday and today, Nicaragua is bringing a case against Germany for arming Israel in the midst of a genocide.
How
These are
ironic.
inconceivable.
How ironic.
The irony is, but at the same time, Nicaragua itself, I know we don't really, we often wonder, why are these smaller countries capable of doing this? But as we explore the history of colonialism and imperial military misadventures, we realize that many of those countries were themselves subject of those types of things. Sure. Nicaragua was on the other side of this, when the United States military and CIA arranged operations in Central America to decimate, young fledgling democratic processes. The same is true of South Africa. Why is South Africa at the forefront?
Or Chile, for that matter.
Or Chile. All these countries have they have credit. They have credit. The international system and the Western governments owe them for unspeakable horrors and tragedies committed on their lands. And to see them act in this way, to speak truth to power, and to bring justice back to the transgressors is actually not only heartwarming, it's affirming, it's inspiring. It's like, the world could be a better place.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing is that it's not just in those countries. I would argue that the vast majority of people in this country, and increasingly in the United States, see things for what they are. And this alone is a dramatic turning point. And I imagine it's irreversible.
Well, the world is not the same. This is a reality. The fact of the matter is the world has gone through a seismic shift. It is going through an awakening. People are becoming more politically active, more politically aware. Our own Muslim communities have woken up. They're like, what's going on?
And connecting to each other.
And connecting to each other. But they don't always agree with each other. And like, as you know, there are a number of chat groups out there within our community, and they're replicated all over. And there are folks like myself and then like yourself where we wind up being in the news, or we're called upon to comment. We go meet people, we meet political figures, we meet government, and we actively work on files. I'm sure like we have this list of 1,000 names that are currently on the SOS IRCC list here in Canada for them to come. Not one has been able to come through, not one. And it's a very difficult thing, and recently we presented the Prime Minister of Canada with a list of those names to go and move that file across. And folks did have an opportunity to meet with them and express how they felt. But at the same time, other people got to go and do the selfie and say hello, and he's the selfie king, and so these things happen. And but for a lot of folks, I go back to an affirmation that we're not allowing folks from political parties to come and enter into our mosques, and I agree with that. And I think, but at some point, that has to change because it is an election cycle. Things are changing. And we need to hold them to an account. Those that are actively in government, those that are in opposition, those that are up and coming into politics. And one thing that I urge young people and not so young people: run, go for it. Run for city council. Run for the legislature. Run federally. Be active in every strata and structure. Join the police, the fire department, law, entertainment. Whatever the case may be, get your perspective, get your stories told. If you want to like the government that governs over you, you'll get the one that you deserve, whether you do something or you don't. And so it really does take action, and it takes concerted action. It takes unified action. But people are divided. People are divided of opinion, and I've always believed that that's fine. You go your way, I'll go my way, but at some point we'll meet in the middle, and our goals are the same. And you came to me with a chart, and I'd just like to pull it, and hopefully, this is a special effect, so let's see if we can do this. Oh, we got it. Okay, all right, so this is the social change ecosystem map. And so essentially, it reminds us that we all have a role, at times different roles, that all contribute to the social change we want to see in both society and in politics. So, and it's a spinning wheel, but everybody provides something.
So I'm glad you're mentioning this, Haroon, and you kind of you surprised me with it. Now I need to be studious.
Okay, you're the teacher.
Yeah,
Come on.
I know, but I came without a lesson plan. Okay, no, I think you're getting at something really important here because we're looking at different ways in which people can contribute based on their expertise, their knowledge base, their experience, where they've been, their life worlds, all of these different things. We're all different people. We have different personalities, different inclinations, different propensities. And so to be part of a larger whole and to contribute to equity, liberation, justice and solidarity,
Yeah.
we have to bring our strong suits.
Yeah.
And for some of us, I'm not speaking
that's
for
a good
myself.
point. That's a
Yeah,
good
for
point.
some
Yeah.
of us, some people are natural visionaries. Sometimes they're political figures or they're political in approach. Other individuals are individuals who like to problem solve or troubleshoot. Sometimes they're like the frontline repositories, right?
Yeah.
The folks who are on the ground fixing an issue. These are the people that you need when there is an emergency.
And then the disruptors.
Yeah,
The
absolutely. And you need
disruptors,
folks who
yeah.
come in and say,
Yeah.
you know what, the status quo is not acceptable and the way we do things is structurally unacceptable. Let's push against that. And when they do so, even though sometimes we find disruption to be very difficult, the disruption creates new opportunities and new configurations that can then precipitate complete transformation. Every revolutionary movement
Yes.
begins with disruption.
Exactly, and so and just to, on a bit of a tangent here, this is the role where protest comes into play.
Yes.
There have been protests every week, every day. Somewhere in the world, the protest is happening.
Absolutely.
In Vancouver, is no different. We have protests happening all the time. There's a huge Vanguard. There's the Palestinian Youth Movement. There's a number of them. They're incredibly hardworking, tireless people. Brother Hannah Kawas, the godfather of this community for many years, I met in 1982 at the Shabra Shatila when that
Yes.
happened, and he came to the Al Jamia Mosque in Vancouver back then, and we protested at that time. So I grew up doing this as a kid, and I've been taking my own kids, and they're getting to an age where I don't want to see my grandchildren having to do this, right? So and neither do you.
No, of
And but one thing about disobedience. When tyranny becomes the law, it's your obligation to rebel. Rebellion is a must. You have to rebel against it, because otherwise, you're a slave. And I'd rather die on my feet than on my knees, right? And so these people, that they inspire me. I've had we've all dealt with every emotion.
Yes.
Of anger and depression and just anxiety and all these things that have occurred during this cycle, and it's still going on.
Definitely.
But these young people, these old people, these people of every faith, the independent Jewish voices,
Absolutely.
talking very loudly, not in my name, and very vigorously, bringing forward the reality that Zionism, it does not equate with Judaism, and that's something that we always have to understand, that we're of the Abrahamic faith, like as Muslims, Christians, and Jews, it's all the through line. And what the Holy Land is an unholy mess, as we know, and and so somehow there needs to be balance.
Definitely.
But let's move forward.
So, but in addition to
Yep.
I don't know if we'll have time for all of those,
Yeah,
but I
let's go
think
through it.
once we have disruption,
Yes.
and also the conditions that precipitate the disruption are sometimes ones of, as you described, Haroon, incredible injustice and deep tragedy and deep loss and catastrophe. And with that comes the need to heal. So there are individuals in these communities, in our worlds, whose role is to help heal, right? To console, to provide support, to actually help us move forward from trauma and from suffering and melancholy, somberness, to something that is more uplifting. And so sometimes the role is there, and you can't expect the healers to be disruptors, and sometimes you can expect the disruptors to be healers. But every human experience also needs to be told, and so storytellers are a critical component as well. Some individuals are, they're bestowed with the ability, or have learned the ability to tell stories.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate, because some of the most remarkable stories have not been told.
No,
And so we need to connect.
and this is a platform to tell
Exactly.
those stories. It's a very important thing.
So connecting storytellers with stories
Yes.
is one way in which our experiences as communities, as collectives, as citizens can come to the fore and begin to contribute to a new logic, a new society that is accepting of all. For example, we can't talk about Islamophobia without stories of Islamophobia. What are experiences like for Muslims or for Jews or for other disenfranchised, marginalized communities in this country? And of course, but also thinking publicly about our communities from where we came, because they too experienced difficulties and struggles, and their stories, whether they come from Palestine or Pakistan or India or Egypt or Sudan or Congo, wherever they come from, many of them have come with generations of stories, hereditary stories that are immensely powerful and very impactful. And these stories need to be told. So we need to foster in the next generation the appreciation of storytelling.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we have the guides. You know, those are the people who show. They provide us with the moral compass. They help us figure out what track we're on. They're the GPS.
But you have to choose. See, at the end of the day, you can lead the horse to water, but will you drink? Like we're going to tell you some truths. It's up to you to decide for yourself.
Exactly.
If you're going to what are you going to take with this knowledge? So there is a lot to talk about this, and I think one of the things that we should talk about is because this is activism. So activism will really get you there.
Exactly.
So how do you actualize activism? How do you make it work? And also, what are some of the things we can do right now that can make a difference for these people and for humanity?
I think this is me kind of jumping the gun and saying what I feel is the most immediate need. The most immediate need is for all of us to overlook our differences, and to come together in unity and in unison and in unanimity to support something that is fundamentally human and humane, where there's no ambiguity, no discussion. So it just so happens that we are living through this moment of historical rapture. We are witnessing a genocide, not like the ones we talk about in the history books, the 1994 kind of genocide in Rwanda, or the other genocides that we talk about that are difficult to prove. No, we are literally not only witnessing it, we are living it. We know people who are being genocided, right? And so with that comes the need to drop everything, including our differences, many of which are deeply, in and of itself, deeply simplistic. And it's sort of when we talk about the hierarchy of needs, right now we are talking about a population of people, almost 2.3 million individuals, who are literally not only being genocided, they are being starved to death. And so the hierarchy of needs is we need to make available livelihood to people who are being annihilated. So what does that mean? It means whatever our differences are, whether you're Ismaili, Ahmadi, Shia, Sunni, Jewish, Orthodox, Reformist, whatever your denomination is, you're Alawite or Coptic, whatever your denomination is, wherever you happen to be from, this is your moment to recognize the humanity of others and
of us
move.
all.
What's that?
And of us all.
Exactly. And begin to actualize that in your day-to-day life. Reach across the aisle, figure out who is going to stand next to you and support you in this cause. And you will encounter resistance, but it becomes your responsibility to create awareness and advocacy in those circumstances. There are people who are just not ready yet or don't know enough. And we need to, before we begin to talk about, hostility, we need to take them with us on this journey as much as we can. And I know this is a controversial statement.
It's hard.
But it's critical work and it's difficult. As someone who's based at the university, I walk into classrooms, and many of us do walk into classrooms. We have no idea what the opinions of our students are. We go out there, we share our thoughts, and we encounter resistance. But it is our job to ensure that that resistance is not a resistance to knowledge. It may be resistance to accept the realities, but the knowledge itself needs to be imparted, and we need to create avenues for the knowledge to sink in. And when that happens, it becomes transformative. That is why universities are at the forefront of social change, from the civil rights movement until today. So
well, it's very important that you, and it goes back to the Quran, and it's an ancient message that you were created in nations and tribes,
so
not to fear and mistrust one another, but to know each other.
Exactly.
And so when you know each other, you can tolerate each other.
Absolutely.
You can also say, okay, well, that's who they are, that's who I am.
Yes.
But you can also get to love each other.
Absolutely.
And the transformative power of love is something that we need to amplify when in such a divisive time, to know that we have Easter holiday, which has been disrupted. No Christmas
Yes,
last year.
yes,
Like
yes.
it's lunacy. We've had our Eid. There are
Destroyed.
other,
Your Eid is not
Passover.
Eid,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
not Eid. It's not the same.
Yeah.
And so we just feel the sadness. And
But
so-
Haroon, communities are coming together. This
They
is
are.
the beauty of it.
Yes.
In my life, I'm 47 years old, and I don't recall a moment in my life where I've seen communities so diverse and so divergent and so disparate and so opposite on the spectrum come together and recognize each other. I mean, you go out to the protests that call for justice in Palestine,
Yes.
and you see every it's a cross section of all of society, and that alone is not only beautiful, it is transformative. It's transformative for everybody who's in these protests, but it is transformative on a societal level, and I
Absolutely.
genuinely believe that.
Well, we practically have done it. I've had some great moments with my dear friend and comrade, Kathy Merchant of the
yes.
Canadian Memorial United Church. We've done a number of programs there, and we're going to do more. They've also come to our mosque as well for interfaith programs, interfaith iftars, and we'll share video of those moments and to hear those talks and to bring people on live
Absolutely.
to discuss these things. It's just an ongoing conversation that we all need to be a part of. So the time flies, and these are special times in our lives. But even though we're exhausted, like our spirits are low, when you give to your bottom dollar, either in charity
Yes.
or your time, it comes back to you
Absolutely.
manyfold. And this is where charity comes in. So, with you folks that are viewing, we're going to provide links for you to donate. You can sponsor an orphan, help to bring a family over. You contribute to alleviating hunger. You can advocate for the restoration of funding to all these various bodies. But it will take communities, and it will take many hands together to bring the not only the desperately needed aid for them, but to restore their dignity.
Yes.
And and in restoring their dignity, it uplifts our own dignity, because there is simply no dignity in turning away, in turning your back on them, of ignoring them, pretending that it's not happening. The reality, it is happening, and if you ignore it, that you have no dignity. In fact, you have no shame. And so that this is a really crucial time in life. It's a crucial time in history. They say, "May you live in interesting times." The old Chinese proverb, the blessing and the curse.
Yes.
It's all those things.
Yeah.
It's life,
Yes.
and we're living it. Life is worth fighting for. Let's keep that fight going. Adel, brother, thank you so much.
Thank you
This
so
is
much.
number
Really
one
appreciate that.
on Citizen Life, and
Hopefully up from here.
way more from here. So thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Haroon.
you.
Appreciate
so
it,
guys, again, what we're going to ask you to like, subscribe, all these things. We're going to be on a bunch of platforms. We're still figuring out how to do this, and this is a work in progress. And we're going to need your help. We're going to need contributions. We're looking for students. I got to go knock on this guy as well. For students, they can get credit for production research, for production help, other things, editing, so on and so forth. There are a lot of different things. We want to help platform you. We want to give you the tools to be able to do this yourself. Right, like it's not just for me to go and espouse. I mean, you give me a mic, it's hard to get it out of my hands, as you know. But it's an honor to do so, and it's an honor to be here. And we'd be honored for you to join us. And let's make the world a better place. Thank you. God bless.